Good afternoon, gorgeous souls. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm super excited to be connecting with you all today, and really interesting topic. And it's going to have a bit of a history lesson, a bit of a mystery, a bit of magic, and woven into how this is playing out in our present day, and the invitation of what this is highlighting to call you to go inwards, to call you to view things in a slightly different way that actually allows you to express and embody more of who you are. And as women, this is a huge clarion call for us at the moment, as we are very much on a huge precipice of feminine awakening and really getting to the point where we're done. We're done with this cycle of patriarchy. And really, to understand its effects, we have to understand its roots. And currently, most of us have been immersed into a society without really understanding how it originated, but also how it's literally in our veins. It's come through on so many levels of our being, epigenetically, at a soul level, and how we've kind of accepted it. We haven't known any different. And our belief systems around all of our structures of control, and workplace is one that's getting a big shadow release at the moment. It's all highlighting these things that are showing us where the imbalance, which was the patriarchal imbalance, has bled through every area of society, and how that has had a huge effect on the evolution of man since that time, and how we are the ones that don't wait for something outside of us to happen. It doesn't get fixed on the outside. We become the alchemists. We are the life architects. We are the ones that take our power back by doing the deeper inner work, which shifts the energetic set point. We set the new boundaries. We make the new choices. We literally become the creatrix that we are actually here to be. And we access both feminine and masculine energies in coherence. So it means that we're not being fractured as a feminine. And I'll give you a bit of background with this. So firstly, how might this be affecting you in your present day? That's probably a really important thing, because you might be like, well, wait a minute, that happened, thousands of years ago. How can that even be affecting me now? So many of the women that come and work with me or are in my communities, they're highly successful. You've been in a corporate career and you've sailed to the top. You have had all the pay rises, the grade increases, you've got the badge of honor, you've enjoyed it. It meant on some level, it made you feel pretty empowered to be in a male-dominated environment and to find a way to thrive. And often in the early days, that was exhilarating. And, as life changes, as we change, as we go through our different cycles of life evolution and growth, we begin to realize that there might be some imbalances and some costs at the way that we are creating our life. And we've likely, created a lot of success. And we might have been hugely passionate about what we were doing at that time. And with lots of amazing adventures. And we've, got maybe many different experiences that our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents maybe didn't have. So we have been the pioneers already. But the way that we've gone about doing it is often through a kind of masculine energy, a conquering energy, an energy which has been encouraged through the patriarchal societies and in most of the main major control systems. It's interwoven. It is. If you want to play in those playgrounds, you have to play by those rules. And what that's meant is what's been celebrated is a certain way of being, a certain way of creating success, a certain way of constantly doing to prove your value, your worth. And actually what it is a bit of a hamster wheel and a production line. But going into it, it's exciting. There was a lot of, for myself, speaking from someone that spent 20 years in finance for the top global investment banks, there was a lot of glamour around working in that industry. I had some amazing experiences working there, and I learned amazing, breadth of information about the money system and how all of these things are interrelated. And I wouldn't actually, I don't look back with any regrets at all, but I recognize the ins and outs of that system, but also how, whilst in that system, there are some big pieces that are out of balance, which is why we're now seeing this huge epidemic of burnout, because the pace and the way that those industries work do not foster a environment for us to really look after our own needs, to even have rest, to actually really recognize and be more connected to our inner selves. It's all about pushing. It's a conquering energy. It's a masculine energy. There's competition, there's hierarchy. Your value is determined by one or two people. It's like, it's very, very outdated. And we know it isn't really fitting, because ultimately many people are suppressing parts of who they are and are not able to be fully expressed in who they are in their work environments. Therefore, when we do that, we are suppressing parts of ourselves. We're energetically contracting. So that means that we're kind of treading on eggshells. And often there are many reasons why we choose, or we're attracted to being in environments like that. Often because it feels familiar. We've come from background parenting, situations whereby we've had a similar frequency. Might not be exactly the same, but it's a similar frequency. And often it's a bit of scarcity. There's a fear frequency there. There's a having to prove yourself, and not being really valued and witnessed and seen for who you actually are. It was about your achievements, or, the outward side of things. So again, all of this is interwoven, and this is really kind of showing that in present day, how our, say, childhood experiences, and that also means trauma, but also unmet needs, they play out with every relationship we have, and they play out in our workplaces as well. So the dynamics we play, in the family constellation, we have the work family constellation as well, and everybody is playing out their own unconscious stuff there. This obviously goes back through our ancestors, through the different generational lines, and that's pretty much been how it has been, and how it might be playing out, really looking at founders, women that I'm talking to at the moment, entrepreneurs, those that are perhaps an online entrepreneur, whereby you've maybe had an amazing career in a corporate environment, and then you've set up your own business. You have a lot of the foundational skill sets, but then when it comes to showing up, you're noticing that there are other emotional pieces that are coming up. So there's like triggers. So it might be that when you're going into pitches, when you're going in to get funding, you're not asking for enough money. You haven't really got the locked in energy of confidence about yourself. You notice that you're coming in contact with certain dynamics of people who are deliberately trying to kind of clash with you, or there's an energy of somebody that's almost trying to smack you down a bit. And it won't be physical, but it's a subtle pattern. It's a pattern. Sometimes we see it with like narcissism. There's a control thing of having to be that one that's on top, and these dynamics are playing out. And obviously, if you are not aware of where that comes in from and why you're attracting that type of investor, there's always something more. There's always somebody else. There's always another opportunity. But your frequency of what you hold on, and the unconscious beliefs that you hold as well, will be what you're actually attracting in. So what I'm finding is that where we've been in these situations where we've got a lot of unconscious wounding around, being embodied in our feminine energy, or perhaps even being assertive and what that has really meant, we often find we have created all this armor around ourselves. So the armory means that we kind of shut off part of our being. We shut off that feminine flow, the creativity, the energy that is also magnetic. So when I say this, it is meant from an energetic frequency point of view. Everybody, all genders, hold both a feminine and masculine energy. But what happens is, if we are in our armory, because perhaps we learned that as a child, that we had to remain armored up, because either we were going to be looked at in a certain way, people might maybe get the wrong idea, we could pick up on certain things that didn't make us feel safe, we put armory in place. We learned that perhaps we get told certain things about our voice, or speaking up, or, to be quiet, or, you've got too much to say. What happens? That gets suppressed. All of this ends up closing up the heart, the throat, the womb space. The womb space is literally the creative portal. And there's only really the ancient mysteries, I would say, that have some wisdom of this. And it's beginning to be rebirthed. And it's something that I've been working with women on probably for about 7 years now. And it's a big piece. Why? Because if our creative flow is coming through like the sacral area, the sacral chakra, an energy center that's about creativity, our connection to life force, our connection to, really there is a playfulness there, but it's our connection to our body, our sensuality, literally our relationship with ourselves, our bodies, and life. All of it is about, there is a flow, there is an expression and openness. And if you're thinking in your head that translates to something that's over sexualized. It actually isn't. There's many different expressions, but generally there should be a flow of energy. There should be a flow of you being able to basically allow yourself to be present, all of you. And what happens is we hold all of this like kind of armory in the field, and we also contract our energy field. So we generally find that rather than taking up space, we're contracted. And then women are going into pitches, or, you know, they're doing sales online, but energetically people can't feel them. And when you can't feel someone, you could be saying whatever you want, and ultimately if I can't feel it, it's a no, because there's something that's doesn't feel coherent there. Therefore it's a no. If somebody's energy is contracted, they're on defense. So when I speak to women and they're going into these experiences, and it's high pressure, and generally they might be meeting with multiple different people, so they're already a bit drained. There might not be a lot of time for them to reset in between, and they're somehow meant to be first introduction, lit up, and talking about their passionate project and all the stats as well, and the details and all the rest of it. When we're not aware of the defenses we have in place, because there's an underneath wounding there, we end up not being able to perhaps create the outcome we desire, because people are responding to our energy and how we're presenting ourselves energetically, as much as how we show up dressed and what we're saying. It's like the full package is part of that. Is this person somebody that is I can align to and I'm on board with, and they're safe, they can join the clan, or are they somebody that's a danger? It is very intrinsic, and it's very, very intuitive as well. But what we'll find is, if we're in our masculine energy and we go into an environment where these men are decision makers, and they're often very much stuck in their heads, and they may be of a certain demographic that have not connected much emotionally with themselves. So literally, if you go in there with masculine energy, they're going to meet you with masculine energy. So you end up with this combative energy that's going on, and it's a dynamic. And the thing is, you can't change them, but you can shift your own energetic state and really be aware of this stuff, so that you can actually influence how other people respond to you. And that is the work that I do with women, because a lot of this is very unconscious. We can't mindset or overcome anything to do with the armory, the energetics, or even some of the background conditioning that's going on. We can't just push through it. That's the antithesis. That's the problem. And this is where we're in this huge precipice of change, because women are, the power of the pound or the dollar that women have is going to be something that then fuels a completely new society and culture. We need money in the hands of women doing good things. Therefore, it's not that we are going to necessarily change some of these opportunities and these business dynamics, but when we go in with a very different energetic set point, it shifts, because people respond to the most dominant frequency. There is also a energetic law which is called the law of entrainment, and this is known by quantum physics. So the most dominant frequency is the one that others entrain to. So if you are really taking hold of your own presence, and you are deeply embodied, not just talking out of like the head, which most people are, and they're hugely disconnected from their bodies, when you bring that into coherence, it is felt and it is magnetic, and you don't need to be over explaining yourself and justifying yourself and this weird dynamic that we have found ourselves doing because of all of this other stuff in the background. And it's about understanding that this is something that is firstly very, very easy to transform. It does need a degree of self-awareness. It does need a degree of approaching things differently, but from a place of empowerment. And knowing that we have been conditioned in these environments to really disconnect from part of ourselves. And that root has come in from thousands of years ago. And if we can imagine, I was in the banking system originated in Babylon. And actually the patriarchal control and the suppression came in at that point. So this has been through Babylon, Egypt, and you might be like, well, that's so long ago, it doesn't mean anything. Well, it does, because it's the blueprint and template of these systems. And these systems are dramatically out of balance. And that is going to be changing, because the collective field of women are waking up and are reharmonizing themselves. It no longer feels good to be in the burnout hustle, out of our cyclical nature way of being. And it's not to say that we reject that fully. It's understanding that there is a change in the tides at this time, which essentially means that we are moving into a new era. So just as you have different chapters in your life, and you know, for many of us, we've taken a route that, you know, was kind of what we thought was the good thing for ourselves, and we've created a lot of success by doing things that way, but then it's come at a cost. And now it's an opportunity and an invitation to perhaps create a new way of showing up in a new way also, that means that for your children, they get to entrain to you to show them what it means to be a woman that's embodied as her wholeness, not in her fracturedness, which means you're not just putting on one mask to go into the office and suddenly she's ball busting and masculine energy and do, and then suddenly you're meant to put on another mask going back home. That's exhausting, and it's fractured. When we are fractured, we have energy bleeds. When we are fractured, we have it just really, really drains our essence. And we've got an invitation at this time to start to really reclaim that wholeness, the feminine energy, and bring it back into understanding the polarities that we hold within us, but how that also can really benefit both life and business and relationships as well, because everything is responding to you. And that might sound a bit woo-woo, but it's being literally proven by the advanced science now through quantum physics and quantum biology. We are literally, everything is responding as within, so without. That was what the ancient occultists and hermetics understood, was literally by us showing up in a certain way and our frequency and our vibration being a certain way. And remember that our thoughts, our feelings, our normal set point, i.e. what feels normal for us. If fight and flight is normal for you, then you're going to be creating a lot of fire drills, because naturally that's what you're expecting. Your nervous system is entrained to be looking for the next danger. And on some level, that will be also affecting the thought forms that are very common for you. And until we break that pattern and we also remove the trauma that's actually there affecting the nervous system. So it's not just about learning how to reset the nervous system. We need to also go in deeper to understand what is the blocked energy. Because when we do that, then we are less triggered by everything that keeps on happening. So we start to take our power back from things that happened in the past, or even through other timelines, or things that we are also being reanimated through us from our ancestors. Because remember, genetically, we have imprints that essentially reanimate for us, and we might even not even know where it comes from. Deep fears about things, about money, recessions. This is deep survival things that literally get imprinted in the genes of our ancestors, of the things they went through. And sometimes it doesn't really help with preservation now. It keeps you in scarcity, it keeps you in a capped limit, and you don't know why. And this is where we need to do the healing work, the ancestral work, the soul work, because that's come through for a reason. And it isn't actually that you're not worthy of something. It isn't that you there's something deficient or wrong with you. Every single person on this planet comes in with their own array of pieces, shall we say. And we're all on a slightly different path. And it doesn't mean that there's something intrinsically wrong with you either, or that you're broken, or that there is something that is going to take years to kind of fix. This isn't about fixing. This is almost like about reclaiming and integrating and embodying, because so much of what has been taught intellectually. It's only been from a mind perspective. When things are not embodied, you haven't cultivated into who you are, into your day, it's not going to have the greatest impact or effect, and people feel that from you. So you could have the most amazing business idea, but if you cannot come into the space of sharing that with people from that authentic frequency that comes through when you're fully lit up and embodied, it just won't have the same reach. Because essentially, for you to make a bigger impact, it requires you to hold more of your own life force energy. And when we are putting masks on, people pleasing, we're saying yes to things when really we should be saying no. We are making choices with the clients that we decide to work with, or those kind of things out of scarcity. We are sacrificing part of ourselves. There is a trade-off always. So it's an awareness of this patterning, how this is playing out in your life and business, and how there is a different way to look at this and a different way to approach this, which is holistic: mind, body, soul, and energetics. And within that, I include the nervous system. And it is like ancient wisdom brought into modern day. Because if it doesn't benefit your day to day, there is zero point of any kind of practice, quite frankly. So if we go right the way back to the inception of what was going on, we had a goddess, which is, I think, one of the only goddesses that was physically embodied on this planet, Inanna. And she held both polarities. She was in her wholeness. And around that time, the patriarchal kind of gods or organizations and all the rest of it, they didn't like the fact that she had this magnetism. She had a lot of power. People worshipped her because of the what she celebrated was equality. And actually, she was one of the only goddesses who also was a bit like, well, everything's love. Therefore, I don't mind about, genders. Or she was all about equality. It was about holism. How can I judge you? And how can I point over here with separation? It was about none of that. It was about unity. That's what she was about. Now, when that's the case, having all of these people that begin to celebrate their wholeness, their uniqueness, these people that begin to live more in coherence with who they are, rather than needing to shoot somebody else down to be able to feel better about themselves or to have some level of hierarchy, that wasn't celebrated. Therefore, it wasn't happening. So there was much more equality. There was a lot more harmony. There was a lot more celebration about the body, the physicality being. The physical world is also an expression of source. The religious programming that came in later on was to demonize the physicality, so money and physical possessions and your body. You're meant to shame and separate from your body. None of that was happening then. She was about celebrating your ability to be this soul in this physical vessel now. Celebrate all of you. All of those parts that have had these echoes of shame, of grief, of the pain that you hold, the suppression, closing your energy. It was like literally releasing that. And that is what is being reborn now. Because what they actually did to her, they desecrated her. She had much of her power stripped. And there was a very distorted ritual. I won't go too much into it, but essentially she was kind of distorted. And the distorted version of her is actually part of the fracturing that they brought about, because they did not want us to be celebrating wholeness. They did not want the power to be in the feminine, the creatrix. She celebrated the womb, the ability to bring life, to be connected to nature, all the intrinsic cycles, the fertility. They didn't want that. They wanted control. So what they did is there was a disruption in that. And that template is an echo of our collective consciousness, because it lives within us. It lives within this earth. The earth holds blueprints. The earth holds echoes of past events. So when war consciousness, and it was about controlling, harnessing, suppressing the feminine, so that the feminine was actually only valued by the fact that you produce children. And it was about shaming and disconnecting parts of ourselves, or almost demonizing. So it was like actualizing the base kind of connection without heart. So when we have stuff like, sex, essentially through all the ages, when there is nothing to do with the heart, it becomes baseless, it becomes deviant, it becomes transactional, parasitic energy. And that's partly why we've got this huge issue with our bodies, our sexuality, our connection to our heart, our emotions, because of that patriarchal intervention that happened then. That war consciousness, that conquering energy, that literally stripping the feminine of her wholeness and only celebrating the fractured versions. You see that through every goddess now. Every goddess, through most of the times, have now started to go through a resurrection. Some of them, we did work on this in November in Egypt. Many of the rituals through ancient Egypt was to try and remove power from the gods and goddesses as well. So again, we've had this weird messaging that you celebrate only one part of the woman. You celebrate only one part of the woman. She's dark feminine, and this might be new terms for you, but I'm dropping many codes in here to make you question. Anything that is not celebrated as whole has a level of separation. And if we only celebrate fractured versions or inverted, distorted versions, it means we can't access the fullness of ourselves, because that's why it was designed. It was an inversion. Because if we are celebrating and worshipping something that is almost like a false idol, then we never get to access the fullness of ourselves, because that was essentially what we were modeling. It was like modeling the feminine template in her wholeness, in both her masculine and her feminine, in both her polarities. If it's only safe for you to show up and represent yourself in a certain way by one limited, fractured way of doing it, then you're going to be really, really contorted and out of your power. So it became not safe to essentially be in our feminine energy. And then around that time, we had also the dark sisterhood, which is I call the wounded feminine, came in. There was a lot of jealousy that was brought in. There was a lot of competition that happened in Babylon. And there were priestesses that went against Inanna, which created her being tricked into something. And this isn't just mythical. This is like actual events that kind of happened. And some of those women are actually incarnated on this planet at this time. This is stuff that I've gone into pretty deeply at soul level and past life level, and mapped out how those players are back on this planet at this time, repeating often the stuff they're doing. So it becomes very interesting when you see this repeating of time, and you see that when there is this mistrust of the feminine, there's this woundedness of the feminine. You see that again coming into ancient Egypt. We see this in present day in our offices. We see this in the women that have found themselves an ally in a guy, and the guy opens all the doors for them, and this woman literally does not open the door for any women. We see this in the not being able to trust. We see this in our epigenetic line where, women blamed, a man went and cheated, and the women blamed the woman that came in and stole him away rather than allowed the man to take responsibility. All of this is bled through from collective wounds from many, many years ago. And it's meant that we've created this separation within ourselves, fighting internally at ourselves or suppressing parts of ourselves. And then we show up in that way. And then we also attract in the types of men that are very strongly in their kind of wounded patriarchal masculine, which is about domination, control, authoritarianism, completely disconnected from the body, completely disconnected from who they actually are, completely disconnected from the heart. We see this. If you want to talk the clinical route, we're looking at attachment theory. We're looking at, narcissism and multi-scales of all of these different things and how they play out. So when we're looking at modern day, what's happening in our lives, what's happening in our businesses, what's happening in our, workplaces, wellness needs to be pretty much total wellness, because we are literally healing from many different aspects of this stuff, and how it's then come in through our generational lines, and how then it affects you when you show up and you're not really knowing why it doesn't feel safe to break free from the constraints of what you've created so far. And it doesn't mean burning the house down and letting go of your life altogether. It means an evolution. It's a choice. It's a rebirth opportunity. And when we choose to access parts of ourselves that we have suppressed, it will feel a bit uncomfortable because it's new. It's a different way of being. It's a different way of giving yourself permission to start to feel again, to start to connect to pleasure, to start to understand that we manifest through frequency as well. So if we are constantly in chaos, fight or flight, depleted, hustle, there's no wonder that new opportunities are not opening up for you, because you are just not at a set point to receive. The feminine energy is a receiving energy. There needs to be a pause and a step back. I call it the pregnant pause. So there's this almost like the loading of the bow. So often I will get a download through, and that will take me on an initiation. I will have to go through something myself to excavate something within myself, maybe a past life or some inner child work, or something will come up. And it's like literally this whole pause moment before I then birth through maybe a new idea or program or immersion, or my book is what I'm birthing at the moment. It's a pause. It's not about forcing it out. You can't force a birth. And then because there is this tension, when I let go, everything moves quickly. So I don't need to be moving in this like push, 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 chase, 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 scramble, scarcity. But we've been caught up in it because we've not even known that there's another way, B, why we're doing it, because we've seen our mothers do it. We've seen that's the whole messaging. You know, that's what's to expect. I retrained as a doula in 2018. And the reason for that was because I was seeing a lot of women that were coming to me with birth trauma, and I wanted to understand what's going on in that system. So for me to understand the system, I've got to go into it. And I began to realize that this patriarchal conditioning is through the medical system. It's through the birthing system. Anything to do with the feminine. You know, we get told not to trust our bodies, not to trust that our bodies innately have been born just like every other mammal that knows what to do. And instead, actually what was happening was some certain decisions that were made that women should be, you know, birthing in a certain way, or ignoring physiology and intervention. So there's been lots of changes to the way we've been consciously programmed to believe about ourselves, our ability to trust our bodies, ability to trust our intuition, ability to connect to our innate inner knowing of who we are, and our ability to actually have autonomy over ourselves. And this is playing out for literally every woman on this planet. And for those that may be in my LinkedIn space, this might be affecting you in your business. This might be affecting you taking that leap to create something new, or the exploration of like, what do I want in my life now? You know, that is an invitation to explore. And it's an invitation to do some of the inner work, which shifts your frequency, which opens up new timelines of potential, meaning new people, new opportunities, things start to move again. This whole experience at this time, it's about massive growth and the shifts, this balance from patriarchal control, the hierarchy stuff, it's not going to fly. And it's going to be this kind of interim period of transition when more and more people begin to reject the status quo and question how and why I've created my life the way I have. And it doesn't feel good anymore. So why am I still doing it? What's the cost to me to continue doing this for X amount of time? And, you know, there will be a power struggle. Of course there will, because, you know, this system's been in place for a very long time. So it's used to domineering and controlling, and you're going to be told what to do. And I know the strings to pull because it's money most of the time. But quite frankly, you can create money super duper easily. And your own frequency and your perspective and taking your power back through doing some of this work will shift up your opportunities massively. So never, ever, ever feel that you're indebted to one path or one job or one organization or one anything. There are multiple timelines and opportunities always available to you. Now, saying that, I'm not talking linear. I'm talking to step into this power means to step out of the programming, because the programming keeps you in linear. The programming has certain conditioning, which is around fear, scarcity, this whole like monotonous way of being. It requires you to actually connect back into your wholeness. And in doing so, in embodying more of who you actually are, beginning to understand that you can give yourself permission to, you know, live and feel a different way. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to have to set boundaries. And for some people, that is, you know, they're happy to set boundaries at work, but they can't set them at home. They can't set them in a relationship. This is all coming up. It's all coming up because it needs to be alchemized, because then you get to actualize your voice. You get to hold more of what it means to be fully you. Therefore, you give permission to your children, your grandchildren, the next generation. We're breaking the chains literally by showing up and being all of ourselves. And that's going to mean you're going to make people uncomfortable. It's going to mean that some people don't understand you at this time. It's going to mean that some people judge you at this time. And it's going to mean all of that. But don't ever let that make you suppress yourself or hold yourself back. And just because you've had these patterns, these experiences with these dynamics, use them as these give you the gold. They give you the clues. If I'm attracting this in, there is something within me that holds a frequency that is resonant. It's the opposite side to the same coin. This is really interesting. Why do I keep on attracting in these people that let me down, or there's a pattern of betrayal in my businesses and my relationships? Why is it I keep on attracting these guys who, you know, talk down to me or try to undermine me or whatever else? What dynamic is going on there? Where does the frequency that I am holding attract that in? So rather than going at it like, that's not the way to approach it, because it doesn't resolve it. Yes, have good boundaries. Yes, be assertive. Yes, maybe there are new ways to communicate, but it's the frequency that's brought it in. So it's about understanding what's perhaps your relationship with certain masculine dynamics. Look at authority figures as a child. Look at grandparents. Look at where that's come in. Where is there an outstanding resonance there that needs to be healed, which is where the energy work comes in. And then we start looking at integrating, because that often those triggers are a childhood version of yourself that is still animating and operating in the background. And when you come up against it, it shows you the wounding of maybe being shouted at, or, you know, certain things happening in childhood. Literally, those are the things that these dynamics show us. But if we don't know that, we take it to heart that it's like literally this means something about us, or we put up so much armory and we are not willing to even look at any of it, and we push through and we go to war with them. I mean, you can choose every adventure, you really can, and none of it is really right or wrong, because that is individual lens of perspective and understanding you are choosing. If you stay in those patterns, you are choosing. If you choose to explore something different, you are choosing. You have free will. And to move out of the control structures means an exploration into who you are and what it means and what it feels like, without needing to be seeking validation from others to behave in a certain way, to be worthy, or to experience success. You get to define it on your terms, because each of us are individual with different needs. We can share toolkits, and you get to integrate them and embody them and play with them and work out what's right for you, because you are choosing that you're worthy enough of feeling good every day. And you could have created one chapter one way, you get to create another chapter another way. That's the beauty of this life experience that we have. We are getting to choose and choose again. I say to people, it's almost like we have many lives in one. So it's like in the past, we would have, you know, grown up, we would have found the partner, we stay with them for like evermore till death, we have 2 kids, that timeline's gone. That's like literally ancient history now. So we are also beginning to tap into the awareness of ourselves as far more than just the physical meat suit. We're not victims of our circumstances. We have an opportunity to shift things in a very different way that is not just the linear or intellectual route. And this is really for those that are knowing in their heart and soul that there is something bigger. And even if they've come up against every challenge going, which is myself included, that often is part of your potency. It's part of your fire and it's part of your story. So often overcoming those things become part of your fire, but you can't access that fire till you've actually alchemized the wounding that's connected to it, because otherwise you just get the next initiation that is like going back to war each time. Look at the cycles, look at the experiences, look at the patterns, because a pattern doesn't just keep on happening. Nothing is coincidental, ever. And energetically, we understand this now as well. So that means that we can be this soul architect. We can become the life architect for ourselves, not from a place of control, not from a place of fear, but out of curiosity, out of understanding. Okay, I'm going to be doing, maybe it's the founder that's doing lots of pitching. What is the way that I can show up that is giving me the opportunity to show up in a very different way and reset in between each meeting? What happens if I actually started saying I need time in between, therefore these are the new boundaries? What happens if we start challenging the way we do things? Because we know that to show up in the best way we can is actually going to serve everybody better. Like literally realizing that we can do this. We can say no. We can bring suggestions to the table. We can connect with people differently. We can start to understand that we can augment what's happening by being more of ourselves, by bringing some of the humanness, by bringing the heart, by bringing the soul, by bringing all of you to the table, and understanding that's going to look different for different people. And that's absolutely fine. and being comfortable with other people being their unique self, rather than it making you uncomfortable and feeling that you need the validation of someone believing the same as you for you to feel comfortable in yourself. That's the outside in. We're moving inside out. You give yourself the freedom. You hold the key to your own cage. So I invite you to consider at this time, what is happening for you? What are the patterns? Because I see this huge movement of women that have these amazing ideas. They want to get out in the world. They want to be making change in some way, not just for business, but for their families, for creating more freedom in their lives, for doing something that connects them with feeling that this is going to create positive impact. We need more people like that, but we don't need them to be burnt out and depleted and suddenly taking a battering. And this is where this work comes in, because actually this is how you get the resilience. This is how you actually can create sustainable growth without the burnout, without the hustle, and it's not to say that you don't have periods where, you know how to put your foot on the pedal. I'm a full-on powerhouse. Like if I need to go, I go. But I've had to learn to dance with that energy. I don't need to be operating like that all the time. And also I realized from working in a male-dominated environment, and I was client-facing, so I was in multiple different client-facing environments with many different senior individuals in the finance world. If I'd gone in there in that energy every single time, it really wouldn't have worked. It was a dance. And this is also about know yourself. All of this comes back to know yourself. And this isn't about, oh, wait a minute, women aren't doing something right this time. It's not about that. It's an exploration of yourself and how you feel, honestly, and in how you're showing up and being, and what your energy level's like. So yes, super exciting times for all women. What does it mean to actually understand how much of you is being suppressed, and what would actually happen if you allowed yourself to be the greatness that you are, and share from that space and own that energy from that space, and how differently your voice would sound, how your mission statement might shift, how your brand might evolve. All of it changes when you do. And this is what I work with women on. And I'm super excited I've got an upcoming immersion, which I'm going to be sharing a bit more about, that's been really wanting to birth through me. And I'll be sharing more about that in the next week. And that's something that I'll be running, I believe, over 6 weeks. And that's where we will be going in and we will be journeying through that 6 weeks. So this is not a sit there and take notes type thing. It's basically an immersion. It takes you through you. So this is going to shift all those parts on the energetic level. It's going to give you a new dimension of who you thought yourself to be, so that you can release the things that are literally your own upper limits, and allow you to start to dance with your own, basically, intelligence, your own inner knowing, your own consciousness of the body, your consciousness of the heart, your consciousness of the womb as well, which might be a new concept to you, but it's massively connected to your femininity. So realizing that actually when we bring more balance into ourselves, we're actually more resourced. We're not as depleted. We can't sit in the masculine all the time. And that also will shift how others respond to you. It will show up in your relationships. It will show up in how you feel about yourself. New standards, different values, perhaps. This is an opportunity it would have been called like the initiation, the rebirth opportunity. This will involve energy healing. This will involve connecting with that goddess energy, but it's also going to involve grounded strategy. So grounded practical things of how this actually shows up in your life and business, because then it's real world, and tools that you can use in your day-to-day when we come out of balance, which we do, which allow you to step back into a state where you're coherent and you feel much more in your body, alive, that vitality, be able to actually connect in with that joyfulness, that playfulness. We can't really do that on depletion. And we're meant to be here to also play and enjoy this life, not just at the weekends, not when we have a holiday. Your daily set point is what also becomes your daily attraction point. So this is a an immersion into really understanding how feminine awakening and practical grounded toolkit can really shift how you're showing up in every area of your life, your business. And it's rocket fuel when you work with these energies as well on your vibrancy, your magnetism. So the energy does some of the work for you. That's why you don't need to push all the time. This is part of the reason why, the patriarchy has wanted this to be hidden from us. Well, these mysteries are getting rewritten, reopened up, and reactivated. And that's a big piece of the work that I do with women. So if this interests you, you're curious about this, reach out to me. I'll put my contact details in here. This is also going to be on replay on YouTube. So yeah, let me know if you've got questions about this. How could the things that are perhaps affecting you at this time be approached differently, be alchemized quickly? And if you've got, I guess, questions about, how would this look in real world, go to my website, look on www.alleradawn.com, go to testimonials, watch the videos. All of those women are senior leaders, and look at the different levels of transformation that happen to them in short periods of time, and all of the different areas of their lives shifted. Money, jobs, relationships, their self-worth, their confidence, even public speaking, like literally not being able to do public speaking. And then after one session, we had got to the root of what was causing that, and her being able to go off and do a presentation in front of, I think, 1,000 people, like by the end of the week. So these things do not take lifetimes. We are not working linear when you're in my spaces. We are working on the whole of you, which also means that we get to alchemize things very quickly. So this is an exciting opportunity to be sharing more of this with those that need to be out there creating the new. And these pieces are there that are coming up to help you with your growth and your vibrancy, so that you get to do it in a different way without the burnout. So sending you lots of love, and excited to be sharing more about this in the next week or so. And if you have any questions, obviously reach out to me through DMs, maybe through LinkedIn, or send me a message through the website. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Take care. Bye-bye.